Joining me now is Alina Polyakova. She's the president and CEO of the Center for European Policy Analysis. Good to have you.
Great to be here, Jim.
There's a quite deliberate campaign by President Trump and some of his allies, including Elon Musk, to undermine the Ukrainian president. You've heard him call him a dictator. They're claiming, without basis, that he has 4 or 5 or 6% support in his country. In your analysis, is Zelensky's support in Ukraine holding despite these attacks?
It's not only holding. In fact, what we've seen after the Oval Office meeting, he's seen a real boost in popularity in Ukraine. So you see Ukrainians really rally around their president. He is 100% seen as the legitimate leader of Ukraine, even by those who may not agree with some of his decisions. I mean, Ukraine is a democracy, not everybody agrees with him. But certainly we have seen a boost in his popularity since last Friday. And there's no question about it that he is the legitimate leader of Ukraine.
We're seeing in this EU emergency summit quite public support for Ukraine and something of a line in the sand drawn by European leaders. Zelensky has said any peace plan has to have Ukraine at the table, despite this conversation of it just being Trump to Putin. But Europe is now saying, we've got to be there too. And by the way, we're backing that up with significant boosts in defense spending. Did you see that as, I don't want to say ultimatum, but is Europe making clear that it will not accept anything unless it's involved and unless there are genuine security guarantees?
Well, we have to remember what we're seeing is a really profound shift in U.S. foreign policy. 100%. After 75 years of the NATO alliance, what Europeans are seeing now is a United States that maybe they can't trust, maybe they can't rely on, that maybe won't come to their defense in NATO. You know, you'll hear the administration say that, well, we haven't reneged on Article 5, we haven't reneged on our commitments to Europe. But when you cut off intelligence sharing to Ukraine, other allies who also rely on U.S. intelligence start to question, you know, if we cross the president in the wrong way, are we going to see the same kinds of punishments come our way that will make us far more insecure as an alliance and as European countries? So I think what we've seen over the last several weeks is a set of emergency meetings that have happened in Brussels, across Europe, where the Europeans have said, we want a seat at the table because there should not be conversations about Europe without Europe, which is exactly how they're perceiving the bilateral conversations between Trump and Putin.
And Trump, by the way, Trump saying once again today, or at least expressing some doubt as to whether he would abide by Article 5 of NATO. It's not the first time he has done that. I wonder, is it possible that Trump is undermining his goal here, right, which is some U.S. and Russian-led peace agreement for Ukraine, but more importantly, a reassessment of their relationship, a normalization of their relations? Because if Ukraine and Europe stand by their demand here to say we have to be involved and don't accept something that Trump attempts to impose on them, Trump doesn't get what he wants.
I mean, that's the big irony here, right? You know, Ukrainians have sacrificed so many lives, to say the least, to fight this war they didn't provoke by the Russians. And if you talk to a lot of Ukrainians, there's no question they want this to end. They didn't want the war to start, they want it to end. But are they willing to accept a ceasefire in which the Russians might return after a year or 2 years, however long, where they have no guarantees for their own security, either from the United States and Europe? I think the majority of Ukrainians will say no. We want the right to determine our future. No one should tell us who our president should be except us. And then for Europe, they do see this as a threat to their own security, even though Ukraine is not a NATO member state. They don't want Russia closer to their borders. They don't want to see Russian orchestrated regime change because they're afraid that the Russians will then have an open door to cross the NATO line. These are the kinds of concerns that you hear from European allies to what the administration is doing.
The vendor line there, as she was discussing, talked about the enormous pressure, huge pressure, she called it, to increase defense spending, and that they now have a surge in defense. And that is true. You look at the numbers, they are lifting some of the restrictions on debt spending so that they could do this. How credible is that surge? Because Europe's defense is much smaller than America's. How quickly can they fill that hole, in effect?
I mean, the hard truth is that they can't. I mean, Europe's defense sector has been completely divested from devastated because they've had a reliable partnership for many decades with us. And the reality is that there is no one that can fill the gap that the U.S. could leave behind if we do start to renege on some of those commitments, or if we stop military support, not just for Ukraine, but for other European allies. And so I think this is something that I hope this administration is thinking about. We had this alliance for 75 years, and it's served our interests in a real and significant way. It's helped our security and our economic growth. Are we going to just throw all that out? Or are we going to say to the Europeans, look, we don't want to be in Europe anymore. Fine. We may agree or disagree with that. I would disagree with that. But is there a timeline in which for the next 10 years we continue to supply you while you build up your defense industrial base? Because there's no reality in which Europe can just say, snap, we're going to build armored vehicles and tanks and planes that can compete with the United States, not even mentioning the nuclear umbrella, which the United States has been the guarantor of for all these decades.
Well, and now that's why you have this open discussion of France perhaps expanding its nuclear arsenal to protect other allies there. I mean, these are seismic changes. No one watching at home should underestimate them. Alina Polyakova, thanks so much for joining.
Thanks, Jim.
And we'll